I went to the dentist this morning. No cavities. Very, very, very proud of my good no cavity streak I got going, Garrett.
Should be.
Oh, very, very proud of it. When the hygienist is like, "Man, these just look great," I'm like, "Well, thank you."
They'd probably punch me if I walked in.
Yeah, I'll tell you though. So I went, and then they clean your teeth, and I hadn't eaten, and so then I ate later because my mouth felt so clean, and then I brushed my teeth again because I wanted to at least try to achieve that, and I just took a sip of my drink here, and everything still tastes like toothpaste, and I think that's because I'm extra fresh today.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah. So, many people are terrified of the dentist.
I don't know why.
I am not because
I'm not either.
I try to stay ahead of the game. And I also know that when your teeth hurt, there's only one guy who can fix it.
Yeah.
And it's the dentist my dentist, Dr. Morgan, BYU grad, big BYU fan. So we had some stuff sitting around here forever in a box we didn't open. And then from BYU Sports Nation because it was addressed to one of our owners. And finally we just told him hey, we're opening this and taking it.
Yep.
And he's like, what? Sure, whatever, don't care. So Emery absconded with a sweatshirt, but everything else I took to Dr. Morgan today. So he was not there, which is always good. The dentist is all the hygienist can hype you up.
Yeah.
And the dentist come in and he just kind of tamps down expectations. You're this is good, this is good. I would like to get a look at this though.
Right.
And you're oh man, I'm having a good day until you walked in here. No. But he's also he took over the practice from my previous dentist. But he's very young. And the first time he came in, I was like, where's the doctor? What are you like
a child walking in to take care
I was
of
like, it's just, am I in a Doogie? Yes. It's am I in a Doogie situation? If I'm in a Doogie situation, I'm kind of for it. But it's one of the things you should tell, I'm sure if in the real, the real world of Doogie Howser, if Doogie Howser was in the real world, you would have to go in and
prep
the
everybody.
Other doctor would be hey, by the way, the doctor coming in here to see you is 15 years old.
Right.
He's the best doctor here. We promise you that. Because, if not, they've been I mean, he might be great, but I've got a mole on my bum, and I don't really want a 14-year-old looking at it and laughing as he's
plucking it,
trying to lance it, So anyway, the mole in the ass of the NFL currently is the Dallas Cowboys.
Nice transition.
Yeah, thank you. And a press conference was held today to announce the new coach, Brian Schottenheimer, who said, I was curious, he's been in the league for a long time, and he's never taken a head coach opportunity. He's never been offered one, and as far as I know, until recently, he'd not interviewed for one, which is not as uncommon as you would think. Sometimes coaches just go through and they don't want to be head coaches. They like where they're at, and he said he felt he wasn't ready, and now he feels he does. He is. He's got to be ready for a lot of things here in that there's a lot of sunshine pumping that goes on with the Cowboys, and they really love the smell of their cologne. And the other thing I think that he needs to realize is something all of us do, is the Jones family today showed how
out of touch?
Yes, thank you. Out of touch they are.
With reality?
Life will test you. It'll turn your world upside down. Again. And again. And again. The only way to hit back is to stand up. Stand up every time and say, I'm not done.
Stephen Jones, and we'll have this on the main show. So we don't. Emery's getting it ready now. But Todd Archer, who was on the show last week, asked, why is Brian Schottenheimer the guy to end this 29-year drought? And Stephen Jones air quoted this and said this so-called drought that people say that we're in.
So-called?
It's not so-called.
That's a fact.
It's 29 years of you not winning a Super Bowl. So, like, just to give you perspective, you bought the team in 89 was your first year owning the team, So 1989. In 1992, 1993, and 1995, you won the Super Bowls, okay? And went to the NFC Championship game all 4 of those years. So in those 4 years, 3 years after buying it, you won your first Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was great. And then, you guys won 3 and 4. Awesome. Amazing.
Then the rules changed.
Yeah. Yes. Then the rules changed, specifically, I think, because of them, more than anything, because of them and the 49ers. Mm-hmm. They were these teams, they – and Jimmy Johnson was so good, Plan B, free agency, trades, the draft. Jimmy was so good at all that stuff. He had beaten everybody to the punch on the new rules. He was ahead of it. Mm-hmm. The difference between Jimmy Johnson and Bill Belichick is that Jimmy Johnson hit a point in his life where he'd accomplished everything he wanted to.
Right.
And he just wanted to fish and work 1 day a week, which is what he does.
That's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Nothing wrong with that.
No. It's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome. So, anyway, that's Jimmy's life. He decided that's where he was going to be. He and Jerry, clashed. He tried to go do it in Miami to spite Jerry, but then Jimmy kind of, I think, wisely realized, my heart's not in it like it was. When I was winning it, with the Hurricanes and with the Cowboys, I was in my, I was young and hungry, and I was I'm just out for blood. I've got tons of money. I never have to work again. I really like living in the Keys. What am I doing?
Yeah.
And he's made more money in the time since then just working for Fox.
And much less stress.
And selling
so much.
And selling wiener pills.
Yeah.
You remember that little phase?
Yeah, he's definitely got to get a little side hustle going on there. Nothing wrong with that. Give him a little side hustle.
At least have a respectable one, though.
Yeah.
Let's he was in an infomercial, a late night infomercial with Ron Jeremy.
Oh yeah, that's wrong. That's the wrong one, buddy.
Yeah,
you're better than that.
And I remember I watched the whole thing. Because I had to see it. I was awake. It was on. It was Ron Jeremy and Jimmy Johnson selling pills to make your dong grow. And I was like, well, I got to see this through. I got to find out what the end of this show is. Because first of all, Ron Jeremy's look, and I don't need this. But if you want to be like me,
then
you buy this. And to hear that, it's well, then why are you here? And no, I don't really want to be like you. And also, again, if this really existed, this problem would be eradicated off the face of the earth. Do you know how fast impotency was gone? Once they had that pill? If you have that problem now, you're just being stubborn.
Yep.
There's a million things you can do. In fact, there's so much television space spent on it. Hey, you having trouble effing? No problem. Here's a billion things that we can do. You don't like pills? There's creams. You don't like creams? You can take a shot. But the pill is a little pill. Nobody will even notice you have them.
Yep.
Yeah. They're easy to hide. So you can pretend to be virile all you want. Problem solved. How many other health problems still exist that had been met with that same kind of vigor? None. So I know this. If that got solved, once they made that discovery, if that and baldness, if those two things, come on. But I digress. The reason I'm talking about big dicks is that I really do. I have a lot of respect for the Jones family. I think what they've done is amazing. They're very nice people, actually, but they're in this F you, we're going to do what we want phase because we know better than you. And usually the thing is, if you know better than someone,
You do better.
you do better. You don't have to tell them. Your accomplishments speak for themselves.
Yeah.
You can't all be Ron Swanson at the hardware store and walk up and go, I know more than you. Can I help you? I know more than you.
I know more than you.
But yeah, there's not anywhere in life other than like in these kind of things where I can do that. And the thing is that even the most knowledgeable person in our world, we still barely know more than your regular guy, right? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, because there's
only so much you can do.
Look, there's some of us that are elites. It's like Dan Patrick and Rich Eisen and me, like those guys that are elites. That I live in that stratosphere with them. We talk about it, the three of us, all the time.
All the time.
We have cigars and brandy and just kind of talk about how these other idiots do this job. Because, again, we're the same.
Coming for you, Urban Meyer.
Yeah, exactly. But, you don't need, he doesn't need to keep saying, it was a huge risk when I bought the Cowboys. We know what we're doing. Here's why we know what we're doing.
It's called gaslighting.
No, you knew what you were doing, but you don't now. You guys bought a great car right at the end of the horse and buggy times. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of advancement since you bought your really awesome car. Everybody else has had a bunch of different cars. You guys are still kind of driving the same one. Yep. And the other thing I think they need to, the one thing that because of the spite that Jerry had for Jimmy for so long, he'll never let it go, is the structure that worked for your organization was to have a guy like Jimmy Johnson. That's what worked for you, was to have somebody like Jimmy Johnson, Bill Belichick, those guys who were so ahead of the game. That's what, like I said, the Eagles and the Chiefs are right now. The Eagles are so ahead of the game when it comes to talent and roster building that, when they have it down, you're like they did last year. Just takes a quick little, but it didn't take 3 years to figure it out. It took one offseason to go, okay, this has got to change. This has got to change. We got to get younger here. We got to do this here. Let's move this guy over here. Let's make sure that we do this. Let's make a couple things. And then because their organization runs so well, it worked out for them. But if you're not going to admit what the fundamental problem is, then you're never going to change. And the case in point remains that the best structure for the Cowboys as an organization, as a business, was that model. Now, does that model work for everybody? No. I mean, there's no one way to do this. But there's better ways to do it for certain people and personalities, which is why Jimmy Johnson also knew this when he was there. I mean, very famously, cut a player and then was asked what happened if Emmitt Smith did it. He's like, look, yeah, you have to admit there's different rules for different people. Now, everybody has a limit, right? Mm-hmm. If Emmitt was doing that every day and not producing, then it's different.
Right.
But if you just got to the team and you fell asleep in a meeting, I don't care if you have a condition or not, you should have walked up and Coach, look, here's the thing. Because that was John Roper said, look, when the lights go out, I have a condition. I just
narcolepsy or something?
Yeah, I just get tired and I fall asleep. If you had been look, I cannot, in a dark room, I've got 10 minutes of being awake. So I just need to let you know that I'm not being disrespectful. I literally have a problem. Mm-hmm. But again, not telling your bosses that got you cut.
Right.
If that was even true. Again, I'm not saying it was or it wasn't, but if it's really true, if you have a medical condition that is going to affect
then you need to let people know.
Yeah. I've worked with people who have had autoimmune diseases that are look, I'm not trying to just take 10 breaks a day, But like if I have to get up and leave, it's because of this. And then you're like, okay, all right. Well, now that I know, all you have to do is just give me the signal and I'll be like, cool. I'm not giving you special treatment compared to anybody else. I'm just letting you live your life and find the way to be productive the best way. And so Jimmy knew that. Jimmy knew that rule existed. And I do think that there is benefit to treating everybody the same, but there's also a drawback to it because not everybody should be treated the same. Some people need different leadership styles. Some people, you have to coach different people different ways all the way across the board. And the people who are most successful know this and are also able to make sure that when people notice that you do different things, explain to those people like, well, here's why it's different for you. I don't have to worry about you as much. So I've got to do this for them because they're really good at this and we really are benefiting from this person's talent. So we're going to make a little bit of a concession here, but don't worry, I've got him on the back end here.
Yeah.
Like there's not like, make no mistake who's in charge here.
You're going to be held accountable.
Yeah, you're held accountable. It's just I have to work around certain things, but if I walk in here, I just yell at everybody and Garrett responds to yelling because he's like, okay, F that guy. I'm going to do it for spite. Emery decides, I'm not going to do that at all.
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid enough. And then Andrew's somewhere in the middle. Well, what are we getting done?
Nothing.
So I have to deal with each personality a different way. And so that's what the great coaches do. And not to say that the Cowboys haven't had coaches that have done that. But like part of the thing was like with Wade Phillips, Bill Parcells got that. I don't think Wade Phillips did Wade Phillips is just too much of everybody's buddy.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and he even kind of knew that about himself. Right. And then Jason Garrett had favorites on that team. I mean, Romo and Witten, they were all buddies. They were tight. They were kind of together. I don't think it did. He kind of knew that, but also, he just wasn't innovating.
Right.
On the same kind of pace that they needed to be when the rest of the teams around them were. But at the end of it all is just really poor roster building from the Joneses. And they do very good about getting stars in the draft. And they have this kind of, they're really great at finding stars in the draft early on and diamonds in the rough. The problem is lately they're not very good at the in-between.
Is that contract structure or is that how much of that is
I don't know
development? Well, also a lot of it too is I think a lot of the players they've drafted as of late or the players that they drafted that they expected to emerge as stars have and nothing I think by their accounts that they did anything wrong, but it was injuries. You've had so many players, whether it was Sean Lee or Van Der Esch or other guys that you brought through that they just could constantly getting banged up. And I don't think that's necessarily on anybody's – I don't think that really falls on the front office or anything. That's kind of bad luck. But at the same time, if you're the biggest – if I think you just got to learn how to handle a room if you're Jerry Jones and finally listen to people and put those that can elevate your weaknesses around you. And when you have a narcissistic behavior, you just don't accept that and you won't do it. And unfortunately, everything's going to unravel around you. And that's where they're at.
Yeah. No, you're right, Garrett. You're right. I mean, it's just they're in a weird spot. All right, just to close it out here, because I've got a couple top fives we need to record. Yep. And Jim Knowles is now making $3.1 million a year as a defensive coordinator.
Yep.
And James Franklin is out of ideas, I guess. So he just said, well, what did Ryan Day do to get over the hump? And Jim Knowles was that.
But
I think here's the thing. I think we forget, remember how bad their defense was early on?
Yeah.
And then Jim Knowles came along, and now it's legit. But Penn State's defense is already really good.
Thank you. That's the thing.
So,
if you would have went and got an offensive coordinator, or if you would have gotten
they did
somebody,
that last year.
No, I know, but if you would have gotten somebody who can get elite playmaking ability out of your wide receivers, or somebody who can make a splash like that, I think what helped Ohio State while their defense was struggling before they brought Knowles over, but being able to get somebody like Chip Kelly to come in and take it to the next level offensively is what really made them successful. And like you said, I mean, Penn State hasn't had a problem defensively. That's really been their bread and butter. It's how can you get this offense to match the production of Ohio State or Oregon that you're now going to have to face or compete with to be in playoff contention. Like, your defense is going to be fine. You're going to have to really fix the offense. I understand getting it and him wanting to go back home because he's a Philly guy and wants to be in Pennsylvania and everything, but at the same time, I don't know how much better this actually makes Penn State. Like, I mean, I don't think this changes the trajectory of them being a championship team. I think they were kind of that. I mean, they showed they could be that defensively without Knowles. So that's kind of where I'm with it.
Yeah, no, I'm there with you, man. Like, it's, yeah, they needed, and like maybe it's the combination of Knowles and Andy Kolnicki. They did lose Manny Diaz, and then they lost Tom Allen, like all those things. Like, so all right, like go get Jim Knowles.
It's a hell of a hire.
Oh, it's a big time hire.
Especially like I think it's more important, like not necessarily what it can do for Penn State, but the dent that it can put in Ohio State. That could actually be the difference in taking that away from Ohio State and hindering them to help Penn State get over the hump. I mean, that's kind of how you got to look at it, the silver lining, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.